joining us in the fellowship hall, welcome to you as well, and welcome to those that are joining us online. If you grab your bulletin, that would be awesome. Hopefully you grabbed one on the way in. If you're joining us online, you can access the digital bulletin and be able to follow along. There's some notes there on the back. Couple quick announcements that I want to go ahead and highlight. One that's not in the bulletin. Want to just throw this out for those that are joining us in person. If ladies, if you didn't get a devotional book last week, maybe you weren't here or just forgot to grab one on the way out or whatever, we do have some that are left over on the Connection Center. Feel free to grab one. And thanks to Brenda and the Sunday School Department for providing those. And I've heard a few different ones that have said that they really are enjoying it and appreciate it. And so again, if you didn't grab one, ladies, make sure you grab one on your way out. We do have a special activity Friday night coming up, family fun night, game night, and we're going to have table games in the fellowship hall. There'll be some popcorn. Love to have you bring some snacks to share. Table games for all ages, lots of fun. And if you're not into table games, that's okay. Maybe you just want to come and hang out with the church family, be able to have some interaction with others, talk and chit-chat a little bit more than what you're able to do on a Sunday morning before or after service, or some of you during service, sometimes it seems like. But anyway, a lot of great fun. But we're also going to do something different this time and have a lot of fun in the back section. We're going to have one station set up with Nerf, like it's a little target practice going on, a little competition, be some prizes for those that do well, top 3 prizes. And then in the back, we're going to have little Nerf battles going on throughout the night. And so be split up. Kevin's going to be leading that, age specific, where little kids can have, younger kids, elementary age, can have some fun. And maybe teens and adults can have some fun together. And then probably like a free-for-all, and because sometimes the younger ones want to get mom and dad. And just from experience, my daughter is pretty good, and she gets me a lot more than I get her. Okay, so Nerf guns will be provided, Nerf darts and rounds will be provided. We're going to have a variety of Nerf guns to choose from, and a lot of fun with that. And then eye protection will also be provided. And so just to give you a heads up that those things, we have all of that, and we just want you to come and have some fun. Again, all ages are welcome. And some of you have been wanting to be able to get the pastor. You'll have a chance to do that Friday night, all right? At least one person right here is happy about that, right, Noah? All right. You don't want to be on my team? Maybe both, huh? So we'll have some fun with that. I did have a question. Somebody looked, they saw an advertisement for a baseball game, but not really familiar with the team, okay? If you look at the bulletin, there's a small Great Lakes Loons logo on there, and then there's a large pickle, Hispanic pickle, right? And what is up with that? Somebody's like, I don't read Spanish. I don't know Spanish. Well, I'm not real good at it either, but it's the hot pickles, okay? It's the alternative jerseys for the Great Lakes Loons. There are 3 nights during the year where they have a Spanish Heritage Night, and they go by a different name, and they have special uniforms for that night. It's also Faith Night, and so they're going to be playing Christian music before the game and stuff. And so the family ministry team decided for our July family game night, we'll take it on the road. And we're going to go to Midland for a baseball game. And so looking forward to that. It'll be $12.50 a person. And we're going to cover one hot dog, a bag of chips, and a drink for everybody, and a special snack during the 7th inning stretch. We'll have more about that in the coming weeks, the sign up and all of that. But just so you know what that is, because I didn't give a lot of information on there. But I want you to know so that you can start getting that on the calendar. We'll have lots and lots of fun. I think it'll be a great evening together as we head to Dow Diamond and hang out together for a couple hours. So looking forward to that. But again, Friday night, family game night, lots and lots of fun. Hope to see you there, and invite somebody else to join you. Love to have others join in on the fun as well. If you have your Bibles, go ahead and grab them. Turn to John chapter 10. If you didn't bring a Bible, I would love for you to go ahead and grab one from there in front of you. And you can turn to page 759. Michael, if you could go ahead and put it on the same picture as what I have on the middle screen, that would be awesome. We'll get to the passage in just a little bit. Before we jump into that passage, and we'll read it on the screen together and look at that, I want to ask you a question. I want you to think about this. If you were going to be any kind of animal, if you had to be an animal, what would you choose? What kind of animal would you choose? Somebody you thinking hard? Okay. How many of you thought of like a bird, some kind of bird, eagle or something, some kind of bird? Okay, you like the idea of being able to fly and stuff. How many of you thought of some kind of marine animal, like a dolphin or something like that? You want to be in the water? Yeah. How many of you thought of like lion or something like, yeah, like king of the beasts and king of the jungle, whatever? Okay. Did anybody think of sheep? I just want to be a lamb. That's what I want to be. Nobody wants to be a sheep, right? But here's what Scripture says. You're a sheep. You're a sheep. Congratulations. You're a sheep. Nobody wants to be a sheep. Why doesn't anybody want to be a sheep? Because we need a shepherd. Why do we need a shepherd? Because 4 things, make sure I get my fingers right. 4 things about sheep and why sheep need a shepherd. Okay? Number 1, sheep get lost easily. How many of you get lost easily? We'll have a little problem with directions. Okay? Sheep get lost easily, so they need some help. They need a shepherd to direct them. Sheep also struggle with taking care of themselves. Okay? They're not predators, for one thing, but because they also have trouble like with direction, sometimes they have trouble even finding food sources for themselves. They also don't take care of themselves very well. Their hygiene is horrible. If you see a white sheep, you know that sheep has a shepherd or that sheep has somebody taking care of it, because a sheep doesn't stay white on their own. They're not good at cleaning themselves. They're not like a cat where they give themselves a bath. Okay? So sheep, they get lost easily because they get easily distracted and all kinds of things. They also struggle with taking care of themselves, providing for themselves. Another thing about sheep is they're stubborn. Now, none of us can relate to that, right? Anybody that's stubborn in here, raise your hand. And some of you are like, no, I will not raise my hand. I'm not going to. And you can't make me, right? Stubborn, okay? Ba, 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 we're lambs. We can be stubborn. I've read that a sheep can lodge itself between a rock and a hard place, and instead of backing out, it will just continue to try to keep pressing forward. Does anybody know anyone like that? So sheep have trouble with directions. They get lost easily. They don't take care of themselves very well. They can be stubborn. And the 4th and final thing about sheep, and especially why sheep need a shepherd, is sheep have enemies. Wolves and other things, other animals that want to take sheep out, and sheep don't have very good defense mechanisms. They're not very good about defending themselves. So the bad news is you're a sheep. Very likely you fit more than one of those, but at least one of those. You get lost easily. And we're not talking about just GPS, right? You get distracted. And instead of following the Lord, you're over somewhere else. You have a hard time taking care of yourself. You get dirty, and you're not able to clean yourself. True story? you can be stubborn and do your own thing. You go your own way. Even though going your own way is not getting you anywhere, you're still going to go your own way and do your own thing. And the Bible tells us very clearly that we all have an enemy, and we'll see that as we look at John chapter 10. And today we're going to fill in this blank that we've been looking at. Jesus is. And we see in the Old Testament and we see in the New Testament that Jesus, the Lord calls people sheep, refers to people as being sheep, but also we see in the Old Testament and the New Testament that the Lord is the shepherd. In fact, you know Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? Today we're going to look at Jesus is the good shepherd. Jesus is the good shepherd. So the bad news is we're sheep. The good news is we have a good shepherd. So let's look at what that is all about. John chapter 10, beginning with verse 1. Jesus says this, "Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in by some other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Pharisees are smart, but they're not sheep smart. And you need to be sheep smart to understand what Jesus is saying. So Jesus continues, "Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture." Verse 10 is definitely a verse that I would encourage you to memorize. We've got part of it hanging on the banners up here. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. We have an enemy. The Lord is giving us a reminder that we have a great enemy to our souls. And he doesn't come with Nerf darts. Not looking to have just a little bit of fun. Wants to kill, to steal, and destroy. Wants to completely take you out. He wants to steal your joy. He wants to steal your hope. He wants to kill the love that you have for others. He wants to destroy your eternity. He wants your life. And nothing short of that. We have an enemy. Contrary to that, Jesus says, I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Or some of you maybe have memorized it, or as you're reading along, have it more abundantly. This overabundance, this to the extreme. Life everlasting. Then Jesus says, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. Everybody say good shepherd. Good shepherd. We'll come back to this thought, and we'll look at two important things that we can learn from this passage about Jesus being the good shepherd. But I want us to just focus in on this. I am the good shepherd. One, that means what? There's those that are not good shepherds, right? If there's a good shepherd, that means that there are bad shepherds. Okay, hang on to that. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, Jesus says again. So again, Jesus really wants us to understand his identity. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. I want us to see Jesus isn't just the shepherd for the Jews. He's like, I have other sheep that aren't of this sheep pen. I'm not just the shepherd for the Jews. I'm the shepherd for the whole world. Like, I'm open for the Gentiles. I have sheep in other sheep pens, other nationalities. They're not Jews, but they're my sheep. And I care for them just like I care for you. No one takes it from me, his life, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. We're not going to focus on this today, but I want us to see, Jesus is going to come back to this later on. I think it's in John chapter 18. I forget exactly what chapter it's in. But he's having a discussion with Pilate, and he's going to tell Pilate the same thing that he says right here. Okay? No one is, here's how I'm going to say it. No one takes Jesus' life. He gives it. When Jesus died on Calvary, they didn't take his life. He gave it. Important distinction. It may be hard to differentiate, but let me tell you, there is a difference between Jesus' life being taken and Jesus' life being given. And Jesus is saying very clearly here, and he'll say it again later on, he gave it. It wasn't taken. Now let's look at what it means that Jesus is a good shepherd. Number one, Jesus knows you intimately. Jesus knows you intimately. If we go back to verses 3 and 4, Jesus says he knows his sheep by name. He calls them by name. I did a little research. I was reading through some different commentaries, and one of the commentaries said that the shepherds in that area of the world, they would have their sheep, and in those particular kinds of shepherds, they weren't typically raising them to eat. They usually were raising them for wool. And so they really became pets, and they would give them names. And it might be like brown leg and black ear, but they would name them with descriptive names and keep them separate and be able to identify them. And maybe some of you have done this as well. Like we knew some people that attended the church, and they've moved since then, but they had a dog, and they named it Brownie because it was brown. Growing up, we had a dog named Skipper, a little Chihuahua, and when it was born, it had a little deformity, and so in the hind leg, and so it kind of skipped when it ran. And so they called it Skipper. How many of you have a pet and you've named it because of its appearance or because of its behavior or something like that? It's a descriptive name that fits because of the way it looks or the way it acts. How many of you like that? You know, like Socks, because it's got white around the bottom or something like that. Well, we have a cat. Some of you know this. My daughter, Sela, named our cat several years ago, and she has talked about it since then. Like, why did you, I think she was 8 at the time, like, why did you let an 8-year-old name the cat? But when it started coming around, it wasn't our cat yet. It was a neighbor's cat, and it and its mother started coming down and hanging out at our house. But we noticed that it had a little bit of an odor. It had some gas problems. And so she named it Stinky because it stunk sometimes. And we've taken care of that, figured out what kind of food it can eat and shouldn't eat and stuff like that, but it still has the name Stinky. And names can be pretty important, right? I mean, maybe we don't think a whole lot about it, but to know that Jesus knows you intimately. He knows our names. He calls them by name. Names are pretty important. How many of you have heard of Steph Curry? Maybe you haven't heard a lot about him, don't know a lot about him, but maybe you've heard a little bit about him. He plays basketball, and he plays basketball really, really well. He's won MVP. His team has won the championship, I think, 2 or 3 times. He's really good. Several years ago, he had been wearing Nike shoes and had a rookie deal, and then that deal was expiring, and it was time for him to sign a new deal. And so the Nike executives brought him in, gave a spiel, hey, we want you to still represent Nike and everything, and we're going to give you a lot more money now to wear Nike and promote Nike and all this. But when they started the presentation, one of the Nike executives referred to him not as Steph or Stephen, which Steph is short for, but he called him Stephon. And from the moment that Nike executive called Stephen Curry Stephon, it was like, you don't really know me. And so there have been interviews since then that said he and his dad, that was like their first indication, like, okay, Nike's probably not for us anymore. Because they don't even really know me. Like, they can't even get my name right. I'm not Stephon. It's Stephen. And so he left Nike and signed a huge deal with Under Armour to be their flagship, basketball player and everything. And I think it's done pretty well for Under Armour. I think Nike really regrets that they messed up his name. Names are pretty important. I've seen this time and time again. When I visit the elementary school or visit the high school back in the day, kids want to know, do you know their name? They love for me to play rock, paper, scissors with them at the lunch at the elementary school. I haven't done that for a little while, but they would love it. I'd walk in and I'd have kids just swarm up to me, play rock, paper, scissors, but inevitably, week after week, different ones. What's my name? Do you know me? Do you know me? What's my name? And there are a lot of kids at the elementary school. Mr. Kiley knows this because he ends up having all of them come through and has to learn all their names. I'm in there for an hour or whatever, or once a week. It's hard to remember, catch all the names and stuff. And so I'd have to ask him and things. And I would do this when I was youth pastor and go up to the high school and, what's their name? And try to remember. And I hate asking people for their, what's your name again? So there was one kid up at the high school, after the second or third time that I had to ask him, can you remind me what your name is? And I just feel horrible. He's like, it's Zach. I said, okay, Zach, if I don't remember your name again, I'm going to buy you pizza for lunch. So guess what? The next Wednesday, I walk in, dude! I was like, hey, it's Mr. Dude to you. Dude, what's my name? Zach. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. I'm not buying you a pizza. It's it's Gordon. Well, okay, I'll call you Gordon if you want me to call you Gordon, but I know your name is Zach. So even as an adult, I saw him at Barden's not too long. What's my name? Because names are important, right? Jesus says, I know my sheep. I call them by name. And maybe that doesn't do a whole lot for you. People can learn your name. But I think it's pretty amazing. What are we at now? 7 billion or whatever world population? But Jesus knows your name. He knows your name. And beyond that, we read in Luke chapter 12, verse 7, indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. There's a bald joke in there somewhere, but indeed, the very hairs of your head are numbered. Do not fear. You are of more value than many sparrows. The shepherd knows you intimately. He knows you. And that is encouraging to me. That's life-giving to me, to know that the God of the universe knows me intimately. The second thing that I see in this passage about the Good Shepherd is that Jesus cares for you immensely. Jesus says, I am the Good Shepherd. I am the Good Shepherd. Now, for some of us, as we look at that, and with English language and the way things have been presented, especially in the last, 50 years or whatever, we've gotten where this word good doesn't mean as much as it would in their context, right? Because we can go to somewhere and we look and we see three different categories. When we go to buy something, there's good, then there's what? Better, and then there's best. And so good is like acceptable. And so if you read this and have that understanding and approach, Jesus is saying he's an acceptable shepherd. And that is selling it way far short of what Jesus is actually saying here. He's not saying I'm an acceptable shepherd. He's saying he's an honorable shepherd. He's saying he's the gold standard of shepherds, in fact, because the word that he uses is a special word for good. It's not just about the character, but it's setting it apart as like an example. In fact, he just doesn't say, I am a good shepherd. He says what? I am the good shepherd, which is an indication that he is the model of shepherds, that there is no other shepherd like him. That shepherds should be like him. He's the standard. He's the example. But he's on a level all his own. There are other shepherds that don't know their sheep intimately. There are others that are responsible for taking care of the sheep, but they don't care for them immensely. When the wolves come, they leave. Not Jesus. He's the good shepherd. He cares for us immensely. There are 4 different qualities, attributes, things that a shepherd does that we see in this passage and that Jesus does for us. He guides, he provides, he corrects, and he protects. He guides, he provides, he corrects, and he protects. Let's just quickly look at each of those. And as we look at those, maybe you'll see how each thing that the shepherd does is a counteraction to what each sheep needs, right? We talked about that sheep need a shepherd because they get lost easily, right? We talked about sheep need a shepherd because they don't do very well taking care of themselves. We talked about sheep need a shepherd because they're pretty stubborn. And we talked about sheep need a shepherd. What's the last one? Because they have a great enemy. And so we'll see as we look at this that Jesus is the shepherd that guides, provides, corrects, and protects. Verse 3 and 4, he says the shepherd leads the sheep. He guides them. Why do sheep need guidance? Because they get lost easily. We need the good shepherd to guide us. We need him to lead us. He knows where to go. He knows what needs to be done. We need help. We need direction. One of the things that I'm learning more and more, and a habit that I'm trying to change, and maybe something that you can look at changing in you as well, and And I'm not saying that it's wrong to pray this way. I've prayed this way, but just more and more learning that it's probably not the most helpful way to pray. Guide us, Lord. Guide me, Lord. How many of you have prayed that? Guide me, Lord, today. Okay? Nothing wrong with the sentiment overall. Okay? I just don't know that it's the most beneficial way to pray because, guess what? He's the good shepherd. What is he going to do? He's going to guide us. What might be the better way to pray? Lord, help me to follow you today. Lord, help me to listen to you today. I trust that you're the good shepherd and you're going to guide me. Lord, help me to listen. Help me to have the wisdom to listen to you instead of somebody else. Help me to have the courage to follow you. Help me to have the boldness to follow you. Help me to have the faith to follow you. He's the good shepherd. He will guide you. The question is, will you follow? And so I'd love for you to just ask yourself a couple questions. Number one, whose voice have I been following? Whose voice have I been following? Because we end up following other voices at times. We follow the voice of the crowd. We get distracted. We follow the voice of the world. We get lost. We follow that inner voice. They say, just follow your heart. Well, sheep follow their heart and they get lost. And we do too. We don't need to follow our heart. Scripture says the heart is deceptive, deceitful above all. Who can trust it? We need to follow the Good Shepherd. So whose voice are you following? Second question. Is there anything or anywhere that the shepherd is leading you that you're not following? And then I just want to encourage you, the key to following his voice is knowing his voice. And so how do you get to know his voice better? Number one way that I have found is by reading his word. If I want to know his voice, I need to read his word. I've also found that it's helpful to spend time in prayer as I communicate with him. Oftentimes in reflection of reading his word, I can hear his voice more and more. Do I hear an audible voice? Thus saith the Lord? No. But I hear his voice giving direction, giving help, giving guidance. So we see that the shepherd guides. The second thing, the shepherd provides. He knows just what we need, and he provides it. Whether it's food, shelter, rest, water, whatever is needed, he provides it. So I want to ask you a question with this one. How has Jesus the Good Shepherd provided for you in the last week? How has he provided for you in the last week? Can you just reflect on that? Well, let me give you some help. That's what I'm here to do, okay? Do you have clothes to wear? Did you have food to eat? Did you have a roof over your head? Did you have a place to sleep? If you answered yes to all of those, I think you've got a pretty good shepherd. Amen? It's likely there's a bunch of other things that you can add to that list of how he has provided. He's the good shepherd. But most of all, we need provision because we don't take very good care of ourselves and we can't clean ourselves up. How many of you he's provided forgiveness this last week? My hand is up, not just in way of showing you what to do, okay? He provides. He cleanses from sin. So he guides, he provides. Third one, he corrects. Isaiah 53 says, we like sheep have gone our own way. And when we've gone our own way, we need correction. We need the Lord to use his rod and his staff to bring us back in alignment. Let me ask you this, though. How many of you like to be corrected? Okay, my hand is up only to show you what to do, not because I like it, all right? I don't like to be corrected, but how many of you know that it's good to be corrected? Because if you're not corrected, what happens? You're continuing to be in the wrong. Like, I'd rather be corrected than be wrong. I don't like to be corrected because it shows me that I'm wrong, and I don't like to be wrong. But I'd rather be corrected than be wrong. And so I'm thankful that I have a good shepherd that cares for me immensely and cares enough to correct me. Because you know what parents do that don't care for their kids? Nothing. They let their kids do whatever they want to do. And a shepherd that doesn't care for his sheep will do the same thing. You can go wherever you want. Have fun. Go hang out on that cliff over there. There's some fast streams of water over there. Yeah, go help yourself. It'll be all right. But because he cares for us, he corrects us. Is the Lord correcting you today? Hebrews 12, verse 11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. My parents believed in correction. And they believed in using a tool to help with that correction. Growing up, we had toy bow and arrow, and it ended up not lasting very long at our house with 3 boys, but the bow part did. This fiberglass stick, and so that stayed at our house for several years. Many years. Stayed on top of the refrigerator, just in case mom needed it or dad needed it to give a little extra incentive, dad called them tune-ups. And he said, you know, do you need a tune-up today, or do you need a major overhaul? Okay. Now, some of you are starting to squirm, like, what did he go through? I'll just say this. My parents never abused me, okay? Did I get spanked? Yes. Did I deserve it? Yes. What did you do to deserve it? None of your business. But they didn't discipline out of anger. They disciplined out of love. They corrected. As a parent, I learned very quickly that wasn't the best way for me to correct my daughter. That there were other ways that she would respond to better, and that there were other ways that I could use where it was much more likely to be from love than from anger. And much more likely to be received as being from love than from anger. But I will say this. Occasionally, the Lord will give me a spiritual spanking. And when he does, I deserve it. And I know every single time, even though it may hurt and I may not like it at the time, I know that it's not done out of anger. It's not even done out of disappointment. It's done out of love. Because the Good Shepherd corrects. But he doesn't just correct me when I'm wrong as far as sinning. He corrects me when I'm wrong in as far as I'm thinking things that aren't in alignment with truth. like he's given up on me, or he can't use me, or some other kind of thoughts. And he corrects that and helps me to see the truth in that situation. So he guides, he provides, he corrects, and the last one, he protects. He protects. He lays down his life even for the sheep. Many years ago, Rebecca and I had a small dog. Some of you probably remember that small dog named Spike. Spike was a miniature pinscher and acted a little bit like he was a full-grown pinscher. Some, like a lot of smaller dogs kind of have that they have that attitude, and they think that they're a lot bigger than they are, and so they think that if they just bark, that's like going to create a lot of fear or whatever and stuff. But anyway, we had Spike, and we took Spike with us to Oklahoma when we went to visit family. We had Spike at my brother's house. My brother had a part Rottweiler named Clutch. Big dog named Clutch, and seemed to be fairly mild-mannered and everything, and so, yeah, we'll be okay. And so we had both dogs out in the backyard. Do you see where this is going? Some of you already have heard this story before, and I understand, and my apologies that you have to hear it again. Some of you for more than the second time, I should say. But we had the dogs out in the backyard, and all of a sudden, they're kind of, getting to they're checking each other out a little bit, and Clutch just decides to chomp down on Spike's neck. So like, hey! And my mom was inside. She saw something was going on. I run over to the dog, and I just instinctively, like, I'm trying to grab my dog out, and I'm in the process of, like, opening Clutch's mouth a little bit and working on that. And my mom comes out with the same stick that we got swats with. It's like, and Clutch dropped him, and Spike got some stitches, and he was all right. He was a little shaken up, and all of that, but he was all right. I tell you that to say this: if that was your dog being attacked, I'm probably not stepping in. If that's just a dog out on the street, I'm probably not stepping in. I see a big dog, part Rottweiler. I'm not looking to put my hands anywhere near a dog that's looking to bite something. But because it was our dog, and I knew how special that dog was, especially to my wife, I'm going to try to do what I can to protect the dog. And my mom was going to do what she could do to protect that dog. And that pales in comparison to what the Lord has done for us and continues to do on our behalf, because not only does he, as the Good Shepherd, does he guide us and provide us for us and correct us, but he protects us, even to the point of laying down, of giving up his life, because he's the Good Shepherd. He knows you intimately, and he cares for you immensely. And so he guides, he provides, he corrects, and he protects. As Larry comes to lead us once again, I want to turn your attention to Psalm 23. In Psalm 23, we see some similarities between what we just read and what is listed by David as he talks about the Lord. See if you can pull out the things that we've talked about, that God knows you intimately, and he cares for you immensely, and that he guides, he provides, he corrects, and he protects. The Lord is my shepherd. Intimate knowledge, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. Why? Because He provides. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for You are with me. Your rod and Your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. God is good. Verse 6. Talk about somebody knowing the Good Shepherd. Surely goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Because He's the Good Shepherd. I think we need to worship Him, don't you? The song that we're going to sing says, I'll follow You anywhere. And when you sing the song and we see the first verse, it tells why we can follow Him. And it ties back in, right back in to Him being the Good Shepherd. He's trustworthy. He's proven Himself to be that. He knows you intimately. He cares for you immensely. He guides. He provides. He corrects. And He protects. Will you follow? Will you follow? Stand if you're able, and let's worship Him.